Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for this daily medicine transmission for March 9th, 2021. So the moon now is in Aquarius, and the title of this transmission today is The War Against Our Consciousness. This is not a new concept. This has been going on for quite a long time, but I want to draw some attention to it today, specifically because we do have a moon in Aquarius, a darker moon and a darker moon. We are getting closer and closer to this next new moon in Pisces. We're going to have the sun meet Neptune in Pisces tomorrow. And with all of the dissolving potential that Neptune, offers, and especially with the sun, right? How we identify ourselves. We're identifying ourselves through, this sense of inspiration and compassion, but really just dissolving into everything else. It is prime time to be offering false light, false prophets, propaganda, all of this stuff. And the Pisces and the 12th house is the collective unconscious. And so without a very strong connection to who we are and our own guidance system and directly to source, to God, however you identify that aspect in your life, if there is not a really strong connection, a tether, a tie, a surrender, and a faith in this undifferentiated source of everything, if there is not a direct connection here, then we are so open and susceptible to be taken into somebody else's experience and, identifying it as our own. And with the sun, that is what the sun represents in astrology, is our identification, how we fulfill our sense of self through the individuation process that starts with Aries, moves to Leo, which is ruled by the sun, in the 5th house, which is our creative self individual expression. And so we're identifying ourselves through this Piscean, watery, dreamy, inspirational, hopeful, a lot of hope, and it's connected to a very tactile sensation that isn't really anchored in anything specific or substantial in Pisces. Again, Neptune is the great dissolver. It all becomes the same quantum field that we came from. And if we are not anchored into a sense of self and understand and recognize our guidance system very directly, we can get pulled right into somebody else's reality. And that is always the struggle with Pisces season, is that the energy starts to dissipate. We kind of lose ourselves. We lose our boundaries. And tomorrow when the sun and Neptune meet, this is an opportunity. Oh, it's such a beautiful opportunity to be inspired, to be divinely inspired, to have hope for the future, to realize that we make of it whatever we want as the mass of people. But if we are not aware of how our consciousness is consistently being manipulated with the symbols and the imagery and the pageantry that is going on outside of us. We're going to talk about that today, specific things, so that you can start to wrap your mind around how these things are not coincidence. And when you start to really put some pieces of the puzzle, more of them together, the picture becomes clearer, right? It becomes obvious that we are working on this mosaic. At the beginning, it's kind of random when you're putting a puzzle together. You're just kind of putting the border up and really taking the time to put pieces exactly where they belong, but it's not obvious what we're looking at yet. So as we put more pieces in, it becomes clearer and clearer. So the moon is in Aquarius now. So not only are we in the next day or so going to revisit the new moon, actually when the moon comes to meet Mercury tomorrow as well, it will be at that new moon degree. how to overcome our passions. There's that sun, there's that Leo energy, how to overcome our passions to teach from a place of deep wisdom. That has been this whole lunar cycle's theme and the intention that we set, and everything over the last couple of weeks has been really allowing us to cultivate that intention. Because if we don't overcome our passions and we don't connect to a sense of much deeper wisdom from what we have learned through our experiences, then we are manipulatable. That's just all there is to it. Then we just become, a side character in somebody else's drama instead of a conscious co-creator of a collective experience. And I assure you, humanity is going through a collective experience. So you can either be part of the process, or you can be, like I said, a side character in somebody else's drama that is unfolding. So what else is happening today? Let's just look at the chart, actually. This will make more sense. So there we go. So what we're going to look at here is, like I said, the moon is in Aquarius now. So there is a sense of aloofness and detachment. I don't know if you saw yesterday, but the Schumann did a massive spike very quickly, kind of in the middle of the day into the later part of the day. And I don't know if you felt it. I definitely did, because my body was just like, nah, you need to stop what you're doing and just let all of this integrate. So it was a really drastic spike and then tapered off almost immediately. So that was interesting on and of itself. And we did have the moon meeting Pluto yesterday. A lot of really deep buried feelings coming to the surface. I'm going to talk about it because as we continue up this pathway of ascension, whatever that means to each individual, like I said, with Pluto specifically, just taking away all of the pathways that had been tread before. It's not that they're totally going away. It's just that Pluto is the Lord of death and transformation. We can't really transform and we can't create something new if there isn't space made. And that was yesterday's transmission. The loss is an opportunity of expansion. And maybe it's a loss of an old perspective. Maybe it's a loss of the delusion that we were operating under, that some, a particular subset of people we're going to carry the same, opinion about something. The loss that we can really even rely on any purveyor of information. So that's coming into this moment. Now we have this moon in Aquarius that, like I said, a little bit more aloof, a little bit more emotionally detached, more about the coherence of the energy that connects us all rather than being in the emotion, especially when the moon met Pluto. A lot of really deep buried triggers came to the surface, and I can attest to this personally. And it was felt very strongly. So now we are using that energy, hopefully, to get ourselves into a balanced state, to realize that those triggers are intentionally being brought up to the surface. And this is when I'm talking about the war in consciousness. Now, before I get into the reading and talk more about this, I do want to show you Venus also is going to square the nodes. It's going to be in that T-square. You don't see the south node on this chart, but it's right here. So there'll be an opposition, and then Venus will be in a square to each, causing a T-square. This is the same position that the sun was in a T-square with the nodes on the third quarter moon. So the moon was meeting the south node, and the sun was in a square to both the moon's nodes. And again, it's about this quiet and this solitude, and the intuitive message coming out, and the baseline and the foundation for this transmission is this quiet, it is the solitude, is the allowance of inspiration to flow in, right? Pisces is water. It's flowing into a container that is empty, right? There's that Taoist aspect. A bowl is most useful when it's empty, right? So the water, the inspiration flows in, but we have to create a space for it. Whereas our mind consistently is in motion, wants to express itself with the North Node in Gemini, wants to be part of a transfer of values Sagittarius, collective values, to the point where we will allow ourselves to be led into the easiest psychic meal, a Sagittarius, South Node. So again, Venus is going to be at this point in this T-square, being this point where the tension in this opposition can be released a little bit. It's still a square, but it will provide enough tension and enough discomfort that will give us an opportunity to cultivate that quiet. And if we're talking about Venus, she's very sensitive. This is going to be in the material realm, as opposed to the sun on Friday when it was through our identity. We identify ourselves through this quiet. We identify ourselves through this silence in the sacred space to allow inspiration to flow in. Now with Venus, it's a much more palpable. We're much more sensitive to it. We have and we're drawing it in. Again, it's drawing in the inspiration. Venus is very happy in Pisces. This is very artistic, very beautiful, very muse-like, and we can create something really beautiful from this moment, even though it is very uncomfortable, because we have this obsession here with our mind of knowing and understanding, and we continue to go along this trajectory. There's kind of no getting away from it with the moon's nodes. This is where we are being pulled towards in order to evolve. But again, with Venus in Pisces, with the sun in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, there's so much inspiration, there's so much water, there's so much beauty and art, and a real ability to surrender to the flow of inspiration if we lean into the discomfort, because our first, the mind wants to be in control all the time. And this is why prayer and meditation and being in nature and finding sacred space to let all of that dissipate and settle to the bottom is so important, because you can't come to real knowing, understanding of spiritual knowledge and wisdom. You can't through the mind. It has to be through the flow of inspiration. So that's another opportunity, like I said, and it'll be very palpable today. It'll be very much in the material world. It'll be something that we can create that's beautiful. We can be inspired to create a piece of art. We can be inspired to put some energy into our relationships, to find some inspiration there. So there's a lot of different ways this can go. So let's come back here to... There we go. All right. So let's talk about this war in consciousness, because there's some interesting things happened yesterday. Some interesting things. So one of the things is that it was International Women's Day. So that in of itself is a thing. Okay. I'm not going to offer any commentary on what that is. Now, either way, I'm not suggesting that I have I'm just not going to go into that. What I will say, though, is that isn't it interesting that Pepe Le Pew is canceled, right? Pepe Le Pew, the Looney Tunes character, the skunk, this French skunk, is canceled for being basically a sex offender on the same day as International Women's Day. Isn't that interesting? Do you think that's a coincidence, especially with Governor Cuomo in New York now, rather than facing the crimes against humanity that he is responsible for in terms of the nursing homes and COVID patients? He is now actually oriented now towards taking the fall through the Me Too movement, the hashtag Me Too movement, the women that are coming out and accusing him of sexual harassment. Isn't it interesting now that Pepe Le Pew, after all of this time, is now being canceled on International Women's Day? Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? And this is how they manipulate our consciousness, okay? Because what did that do? That just split people further, didn't it? So some people are so turned off by cancel culture that they actually went out of their way to defend and to justify and to normalize a behavior that I've personally Personally, I never liked that character. He's a sex offender, okay? My spouse doesn't even like that character. And he acts like that character all the time with me in a consensual relationship. The reason he also thinks that Pepe Le Pew as a character is a creep is because he knows that when it's not consensual, it's not okay. And if you really watch and you deconstruct the behavior of that character, it does, regardless if it's programming or normalizing or justifying or just holding space for this particular personality, it is still consistently, I don't think there's ever an instance where this character's affections are reciprocated. It's always a very one-sided, very assertive, almost aggressive focus on this character who doesn't respond. It's not reciprocal, right? And so I'm not advocating to cancel it or not. I have no interest in erasing history, erasing culture, regardless of what it stands for. I think we still need to have a sense of what has been part of our culture. So with that being said, some message boards, I say, oh yeah, well, Pepe Le Pew is a creep anyway. And again, you can see how they did that. They bifurcated people even further. So how do we stay out of that fray, right? Because that was a very intentional thing that they did. Whoever they is, right? It was a very intentional move. It was not by accident that these International Women's Day and then the canceling of this particular character happened concurrently is not an accident. And so in some ways, they're almost, every time this happens, it strengthens the bifurcation even more. But what it really does is in the end, because we are heading towards Gemini, the North Node is moving towards Gemini. It's going to still be there for a while. This bifurcation, this dialectic, it is inescapable and it's unavoidable in terms of where we are going in order for our collective soul to evolve, right? This is inescapable. So we are heading in that direction. And so there has to be a bifurcation and a dialectic. And in some ways, despite the intention of trying to polarize people, the more you polarize people, the more that you are creating the potential for something new, right? Because it's only through polarization and duality that creation of something new can even happen. So if you are intentional about this, then you see what is happening and you are 5 steps ahead of it, right? You're not getting involved. And see, here's the thing with Pluto and the moon that triggered, a lot of people probably got triggered in different ways for different reasons. I know for me personally, that triggered a lot of my trauma because I had people basically I was skewered on some message boards for just expressing my opinion. It didn't even have anything to do with whether or not it should be canceled. I didn't say anything. Or if anybody thought that he was a harmless character and didn't normalize sex offenders, I didn't even mention that. I didn't have an opinion about other people and if they should or shouldn't feel that way. All I did was express my opinion. And I had people were on a slippery slope, real close to victim blaming, real close to pretty much justifying that behavior. It was pretty much 2 steps away from the concept of like, well, you want it. So, and every woman actually wants this. They just won't admit it. Whoa. All right. So-called patriot chat rooms. Wow. So the bifurcation, in some ways, it allows you also to see very clearly what's going on, where you stand, where other people stand. Can you hold space for what is seemingly opposite of where you stand? It is a real challenge. I think ultimately, though, like I said, this moon in Aquarius, again, allows us to feel a little detached, a little aloof. We can use those emotions to actually activate something rather than getting lost in them, getting triggered in them. And that was a real potential yesterday with the moon and Pluto bringing up a lot of very deep, dark feelings that maybe we thought we had stuffed away. And maybe we thought we were on a certain trajectory in this ascension process, and something brought to our attention that pathway is no longer available either. So what are we going to do about it? It's very interesting. And what are we going to do about it? Well, I would say that we are really in a position right now to create some sacred, create some sacred space. Okay. The closer we get to the Sun and Neptune meeting, the stronger this dissolution into the collective experience gets. And if we do not want to end up in somebody else's political game, we would be well advised to, again, find that flow of inspiration, find that quiet, find where we feel we are grounded and anchored and where we belong, and what we are responsible for creating and nurturing as well, so that we can actually come through this with some redemption and some change, right? Because otherwise, you're just getting pulled into the drama. Again, I feel like this message keeps coming out over and over and over, and it's been the case for the last year, if not longer. I mean, ever since Saturn and Pluto were in a conjunction last January, it was pretty clear that was the beginning of the end. And so learning how to hold it down in the midst of a split, a very distinct two-world split that is continuing to happen, layer after layer after layer, and in some ways is being aggravated and manufactured on some level, but what ends up, like I said, nothing can stop it. So the wedge keeps getting deeper. They continue to try to divide people, to insert imagery, insert narratives, try to craft what is happening. And if you are seeing the larger picture here, then you don't get pulled into it. You are not in the chess game. You are watching the chess game happening. And so you can actually, again, the loss is what provides the space for expanding into something new. And even if it's a loss of an old perspective, that is just as traumatizing as a loss in the material realm. And so again, this is why the quiet, this is why creating a space, this is why deepening your relationship to yourself and source, and really just letting go, continuing to let go of other people's perceptions, especially when they have something in particular to gain from you by keeping you engaged in their narrative. So these transmissions are about helping all of us through this space and to guide all of us on a regular basis into how do we hold space for ourselves? How do we grow? How do we create? How do we transform? How do we come into this new version of ourselves that is coming consciously and keep the highest timeline as we move through this? And it is about creating a sacred space. It is staying out of other people's political games. And sometimes you don't realize that your support of people with particular narratives, for instance, is really just supporting a political game. They don't care about Pepe Le Pew being a sex offender. It's really just about, creating a certain narrative and to get people worked up about these things. And it's not that saying that there's nothing to be, that we don't have work to do around these issues. Absolutely. But, anybody that's continuing to erase culture, erase history, regardless of what those figures represent, is really trying to control how we think and feel. And we should be able to make those decisions for ourselves. And I should be able to express my opinion about something as much as anybody else is about to express it. And I'm not going to attack people, but you do see people's true colors when you hit a nerve like that and they don't want to maybe come to terms with the fact that, yeah, perhaps Pepe Le Pew is a sex offender, and that character has been grooming young people and women into accepting this type of behavior as normal. So, and maybe it's innocent, you know what I mean? Like, it's really about the filter you have. So let's get right into the transmission. I could talk and rage about this all day. And it's really not about my opinion. It's more about how we collectively can move through this transition as conscious co-creators and not getting pulled into, you know what I mean, our own drama as well. So, and a lot of people pass off their own drama as truth. And that is something that we need to figure out. And we're all learning it piece by piece as we go along. So, and the best way to do that is to stop, just let go. Just let go of other people's telling you what is and isn't, and start and continue to cultivate your own sense of knowing, your own sense of guidance. And that requires getting quiet, going into sacred space, removing yourself from other people's drama, listening to your guidance system. Okay. And it's pretty spelled out here, I would say. So the 5 of Swords coming into the moment, this is Venus in Aquarius, defeat. The 5 is always the challenge, in numerology, and also, you know, in the tarot, in all of these archetypal modalities. The 5 is kind of the bottom. We've bottomed out and there's only up to go at this point. So the 5 of Swords is Venus in Aquarius. Okay, she's sensitive. This is defeat. All right, too much sensitivity can mean a sharp pain. If we're too sensitive, right, then and the cold hard truth comes in, this is very painful. An intellectual crisis, struggling against fate. You know, there's a futility that eventually gets here in Aquarius, that no matter what, there is an outcome when everything is connected together. And Venus is sensitive and she wants things to feel good. And the swords are always such a struggle because rational, cold, hard truth, intellectuality, right? And the crisis that comes along with, like, there's very sharp edges to the sword. There's not a ton of mutability except for Gemini. So we may have felt defeated coming into this moment, certainly some sort of intellectual crisis. And this, I think, was really brought about, mostly by the moon meeting Pluto last night. However, this manifested. So if you know where these aspects happen in your chart, you can have a better idea of what area of your life this is most likely manifesting in. For me, it was in my 12th house, okay? Very close to asteroid Ceres is in my 12th house in Capricorn. So, and also very close to my ascendant. So we are, the crisis here is about struggling against fate. And what's fate? Fate is just cause and effect. It's just cause and effect. What's happened in the past based on your present decisions determines your future. It's really that simple. So there is no victim in this situation. It's just the defeat that we feel when the cold hard truth, comes up against our sensitivity and our desire to feel a certain way about things. And it doesn't feel good, does it? It does not feel good. So at the heart of the moment, though, the Queen of Discs. So we have more feminine energy, and this is way more grounded, okay? This is the Queen of the Thrones of Earth. So at the heart of the moment here, in the heart of us, right, these court cards are people and represent either us or other people. At the heart of it, we really are cultivating this mother figure, right? It's not about the mind and making sense through the mind. It is about taking our sensitivity and anchoring it into something that fulfills us, right? The Queen of Discs is the mother, right? The water of the earth. She has a globe in her hand. She has a staff with a crystal on top of it. She's looking over the expanse of her kingdom while sitting on a throne, right? She's got these incredible, antlers coming out, right? This is and you can see the goat or the ram. It's probably more the goat, the mountain goat, right? There is, antenna and horns and antlers, they are sensory to a certain extent too. So she also is able to perceive and intuit what's going on around her, based on this as well in a very real way. This is the perfect mother, right? The Queen of Discs, the Queen of Pentacles, kind and tender, but also responsible. She's instinctual and intuitive, right? Instinctual because of the earth, intuitive because of the water. She's strong. She's sensitive. She takes care of her family, taking care of what's right in front of you, taking care of what you are responsible for nurturing, having a sense of practicality, being calm. Again, not getting sucked into the drama. And that is difficult when coming into the moment is the defeat, right? The intellectual crisis that really challenges our sensitivity. So in the heart of the moment, though, we are sitting on our throne and seeing what it is that we are responsible for nurturing and cultivating and protecting, right? Protecting our family, protecting what we're responsible for. This has nothing to do with our intellectual prowess or what's going on in the realm of, the mind specifically. So what we are aware of, well, the Eight of Forces is that lightning bolt. So it is a time of splitting apart. Again, we're really going to keep feeling this splitting apart. And this is very significant and sudden, right? Lightning, you don't know where lightning's going to strike. You can kind of tell, but nobody ever knows. And what is lightning other than homeostasis, right? It is the discharge of energy to find balance in the atmosphere because there's too many charged ions one way versus the other. Black Moon Lilith. Oh, let's talk about that as well, because I think it's really important that we are being very mindful of the type of feminine energy that we are putting out front and infusing with our intention when we talk about International Women's Day. I've seen, because the modern feminist movement really wants to put Lilith up on this pedestal, and that's up to each of us individually to do, whether or not we think that archetype, but be mindful. What archetypes, what version of the feminine are you putting out in front? Because if you're putting Lilith, you're putting the demon, the dark feminine aspect that we all have it, right? This is deeper, instinctual. Remember what Lilith wanted. She wanted to be in charge. So did Adam, right? If we're going to talk about archetypes here. But she said, I'm out, forget it, right? But she didn't come to the table as much as anybody else. She doesn't deserve to be in charge just as much as Adam doesn't deserve to be fully in charge either. But she decided to split, and she had a chance to come back, and she didn't, because she was like, I'd rather be alone. I'd rather take the lumps. I'd rather take the punishment and be exiled than have to give up my power. Well, what good is your power when you don't have anything to create from it? She doesn't create. Lilith doesn't create. Lilith destroys. She is the demon goddess of abortions and death of babies, right? That is what she represented in the Babylonian culture, in the Hebrew culture. So keep in mind what you are summoning and what archetypes are being presented to you as a source of feminine power that you are. Is that really what we are putting forward? Anyway, the point I'm making here is because Black Moon Lilith is at 2 degrees Taurus today, the lightning bolt, okay? Now, this lightning is a natural phenomenon. It cleanses, right? It rebalances things in a natural setting. Just like I said, lightning is the discharge of energy when there are too many charged ions in one direction and there needs to be balance, right? That's the nature of the universe, is to find the balance. If things are too out of whack, there will be some mechanism like lightning to balance it out. And it's a huge discharge, and it will split, right? And that's exactly what Lilith did, right? She's like, I'm out. See ya. And she made her choice, right? And so there is a metaphorical death with this card, a splitting apart, a sudden splitting apart. But the thing is, the storm has been brewing for a while. You can see the puddles. It's been raining. And so now the thunder and the lightning strikes, and the tree is split apart, and it may seem sudden, and may seem devastating. It's, in some ways, but it's time to accept the situation as it is and see that this is a cleansing, right? And so maybe if that dark part of us, that dark feminine part of us, really wants to, she really, it's instinct. It's instinct, and we don't have any control over it necessarily, but we certainly act from that place as well, because it is the instinct of trying to preserve our power, when really our power actually comes from something that can't be taken away from us. That's something that she did not, as a character, as an archetype, did not realize, and so she represents that part of us that, even so, here's the splitting apart. And this is where our attention really is in this bifurcation right now, and how devastating. And it becomes more so and more so with every passing day. Let's see what else we can, inject into the collective consciousness that's going to split people apart. Well, this is it's getting to the point now where, it's almost on a daily basis. So again, are you buying into this? Are you buying into the bifurcation? Are you identifying with the split? Because it's right in our face right now, so it's kind of hard not to. But I would say here's the King of Forces. Now it's supposed to be reversed. So I will still read it as reversed, but you can look at it in its upright position. So at the root of things, the King of Forces, when it's reversed, again, depleted forces, scattered energy, separation, loss of position. Are you starting to see a theme here that we are dealing with energetically? When we are rooted in a place where we are not feeling whole, where we are not feeling in control of ourselves, if our energy is depleted, if it is scattered, if we do feel separated, if we don't feel calm, and we don't feel a sense of positive energy, right, that this King of Forces represents, this natural positive energy, very powerful, then we are going to feel scattered and depleted and separate and loss of power. And I think this is where we could use some more reinforcement from taking a step back, getting into that quiet solitude, allowing inspiration to flow in so that we can be more powerful. We can feel more energetic. We can feel whole. We can feel in control of our own energy. Because right now it feels like the defeat, right? That Five of Swords can really deplete our energy and deplete our ability to connect into an unending source of energy, which is the planet, right? It's natural energy. It's everywhere and it's accessible at any time. But if we don't realize that because we're stuck in the mind, we're buying into the drama, then we are going to feel depleted because we're expecting something outside of us to make it, to infuse us and to inform us. And every step of the way, we're going to have to keep letting go and cultivate this energy, this connection. And it's hard because we keep looking, we keep searching, we keep wanting to find individuals or any stream of information that's going to give us a sense of like we're on the right track. And it's not, this is teaching us that we have to come to these realizations on our own and as a result of our own guidance and cultivating that own guidance. And right now is the time. Absolutely. Because where this is going, right, this whole process, the Eon, number 20, this is the judgment card, right? Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius. This is the rise of the phoenix. This is a finality. This is destruction. This is liberation. This is redemption. This is renewal and transformation. It's all coming out of this situation. Liberation of hidden abilities. This is the phoenix rising. But that does require something being destroyed and burned down in order for then us to lift out of it. Renewed, reborn, however you want to see that. But I think the depletion that we are feeling and the focus on the bifurcation, even though we want to protect, we want to nurture, we want to enclose that which is important to us, we are going to have to let go of certain things in order to come out renewed. And so if we're holding on too tight to certain things, it's okay to let them go. Not everything can be saved, and we have to be mindful of what actually is important to us as we decide what it is that we are going to protect and nurture and take care of, okay, right in front of us. Again, Venus is about our relationships. It's about the material world. It's what we value. So what do we value? Because we do feel some defeat around that. And so we have to come back around and reevaluate what that is. And this is part of the transformation. This is part of the rise of the phoenix that is the outcome of all of these archetypes coming together today. So some guidance here. Number one, when it comes to that lightning bolt, I already talked about this, the 3 of keys, this is somebody else's political conflict. So you want to be a chess piece, or do you want to sit back and watch the game unfold? Take a step back, and you don't have to participate in the battles, all right? People are serving their own agendas through the battles, right? That whole thing with Pepe Le Pew, International Women's Day, that is a chess move, okay? That is intentional to stir up the battle. So if you don't want to, be mindful of that and not get pulled into the battle, because it's not actually about any justice. It's not about women. It's not about serving women. It's that none of that is about that. It's this chess game and this political conflict that we would be better off staying out of, because look, it triggered a lot of people. I mean, look at what they did. All they did was reinforce the bifurcation, which is just going to make the transformation even more powerful, honestly. And Pueo, your ancestral guides are offering you guidance. Here we go. I mean, they are coming in hot and they are available to us, but we have to be able to hear them and recognize them and listen. We have to listen, and we can't do that if we're embroiled in the conflict, okay? If we are embroiled in the split and the separation, we have to take a step back out of that if we want to even be able to pay attention to signs and omens and guidance, because this is the only way forward, is to really trust ourselves. Now, create a sacred space. This is really going to help with the depletion. This is going to help with the fact that our energy is scattered. Create a sacred space for your meditation, for your prayer, for contemplation, whatever it is. It's important that you create the space. Now, Venus is also the ruler of Libra, which is aesthetic balance, right? Symmetry as well. So she loves beautiful places. This is about creating a beautiful sacred space in order to cultivate that nurturing quality about what we value, and so that we can we can reinforce our energy and not feel so scattered. Again, it's so easy with the mind to get scattered and to get pulled into the other drama that serves other people's purposes, specifically serves their purposes of harnessing your energy and your resources. So again, when you create a sacred space for yourself and you kind of push out all of the other distractions, then you can hone in on your guidance system. And along with that, you have the Five of Roses. This is just, here we are. These are two children that are able to explore and discover, and they feel safe, and they are able to be themselves. Again, creating a sacred space where you can be innocent and passionate and exploratory without, they're smiling. They're smiling and they're playing. Okay, you want to be able to play and explore and discover. You don't want to get pulled into political conflict and be a pawn in someone else's chess game. Okay, so part of that, again, is creating this space. Look at them. They're surrounded by a garden wall. So, and then they are free to move about this space that is naturally containing them in a way that is encouraging their growth and their education and their discovery. And so this is what we need to do right now. The more they offer these situations, the more the bifurcation is going to happen. And so when you, instead of resisting it, right, seeing it for what it is, not getting pulled into the drama of it, but also acknowledging that this is where the biggest amount of transformation is going to come from, right? That judgment card, the eon, right? The redemption and the rebirth and the transformation is coming out of this situation. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. The more you polarize something, the more that it eventually triggers a transformation and a creation of something new. It's inevitable. So in some ways, that's just the bifurcation and the splitting of people, even though it's intentional. It really is it's just bringing the process along. It's whether or not you're conscious of that or you are a pawn, basically. And we can easily all be pawns when our filter is triggered and we see things through that filter, and then we relive our trauma through something we see. And we all need to deal with that. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on at this point. So wow, that was intense transmission. Thanks, guys, for being here. Really appreciate it. If you're interested in reading or energy work, you can go to catalystenergies.net. That is on or in the description box below. If you want to connect on social media, Telegram is the preferred, but Facebook is there as well. And if you are watching on BitChute or YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Definitely hit that like button. It helps independent content creators like myself actually be seen, which is helpful for all of us. And on the equinox weekend, I am going to be part of an online astrology retreat called Redreaming the World. It's a free event. There's going to be live presenters, interviews. I have submitted a presentation that's called The Role of the Starseed in the Age of Aquarius. So as soon as I get the link to that, I'm going to blast it out on my social media. So that's a good way to find it. Or you can go to catalystenergies.net and sign up for the mailing list. That is the best way to keep in contact so I can directly connect to you about these types of events and what is coming up in the future for Catalyst Energies. So thank you guys. New cat is here. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I love you so much. I really do. I appreciate everything that is happening here, even this cat scratching my leg right now. And I will see you guys tomorrow on the Daily Medicine Transmission. Take care of yourself.